Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
This morning, as I mentioned earlier, the calendar has changed a little bit. Instead of Susan Moon, we have Teng How Bae and Steve Carson, who were originally scheduled for next week. We did enough to move forward 1 week. Both are long-term members of the fellowship. Teng How Bae has been a treasurer for a long time. I don't know exactly how many years, Teng?
A couple of decades.
Teng, I understand you're going to speak first.
Yes.
Teng was, as background, Teng was born in China, grew up in Thailand.
Yes.
Has a lifelong association with Buddhism.
Yes.
And we understand you approach Buddhism as more as a philosophy of life.
Yes.
So he'll speak first from that. After Teng has spoken, Steve Carson, longtime member here, will speak. Steve has managed to have 3 lives so far. He grew up in upstate New York. He's a graduate of the Union Theological Seminary in New York City. He was pastor of the MCC Church in Boston, and he's now a 6th grade teacher in San Francisco here, and a member of GBF. So as it says here, as a post-New Yorker, post-Christian, post-pastor, post-50, he is a great believer in the seasons of life. I think that's a great way to start off the new year, marking passage of time. So, Teng, would you like to?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
As I've been told, my name is Teng How. Last name is Bae. In Mandarin, it's pronounced Teng How Ma. Ma with same last name, Yo Ma. Same last name. Anyway, I was born in, what can I say? I came to this country since 1968 as a student. And after I finished school, I decided to stay. And after I finished school, 7 years later, I will go back to Thailand every 2 years. I just came back 4 weeks ago. I stayed there for a month. Go back to Thailand is more like connect with family and friends and the culture. The culture, the reason I say that because it's something that I'm going to talk about later on. Anyway, I was suggested by Jimmy Stewart talking about my spiritual path. Actually, I don't really know what my spiritual path is, But I'd like to give you a little bit my background, and we can see from there, what my spiritual path is. As I mentioned, I was born in China and grew up in Thailand, and I was born under Buddhism. Who knows at the time, the grandparents, whatever, And so my spiritual practice, including, since I was born in China, including Taoism, which is part of Chinese Buddhism practice, Taoism, Hinduism, which are a lot of people practice in Thailand, including Hinduism, regardless they know or not. Buddha himself is a Buddha, is a Hindu too. There are a lot of adaptation from the Taoism and Hinduism being practiced in Thailand. And part of that because the besides that, let me go back a little bit. Chinese Buddhism, Taoism is part of the Chinese Buddhism practice. We don't separate them. No, Taoism, Buddhism, they go side by side. They go to Tao temple, they go to Buddhist temple. They make no difference. And in Thailand, because there's such a mixed similarity of culture between Thai and Chinese, therefore, adaptation of each other and tradition, they mix very well in Thailand. Therefore, in Thailand, even the Taoism, Buddhism, Hinduism, they are part of the practice. So this is my influence that I got. And Buddhism, Taoism teaching in the Chinese culture, regardless, you consider yourself a Buddhist or not, because we live under that culture. And the teaching of the Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism is part of the culture in Thailand, or even in China. So this is how we live our life in blending the culture, just like this country too. People ask me that. People are talking about in the West, since they always say, I'm practicing Buddhism or Catholicism in the East. No, we don't. We don't know. Well, I don't know we will put it that way. But I would say I'm a Buddhist. Now, personally, I don't know what is that mean by practice. I don't sit much, like most people. But the thing is, I do, maybe you think this is practice, I have altar at home, which is influence from family, from generation to generation. Everybody in Thailand, Buddhism have an altar at home. I offer incense every morning. That will give you a moment center. It's not pray for Buddha, give me this and give me that. Mm-hmm. It's appreciation, the appreciation of the teaching of Buddha. That I implement that, I recognize, I apply to my daily life. I heard an old monk from Taiwan. I originally from China. He gave a lecture from time to time on China TV station. He did mention that. He said, every time I go on my knee, offer the incense, doesn't mean I ask for anything. I said, the appreciation of Buddha teaching. I said, wow, that's cool. That's exactly what I want to hear too, That's very cool. So that's why, so those you may say, that's my practice. Okay? Okay. You know what? I missed something which I didn't print out. Okay, I think I know what I'm talking. I use Buddha teaching as a guideline of my life. For example, the base, like not kill, not lie, not cheat, do not harm. They including harm to myself, to anyone, any human being, any species, including environment that we live in. That's the base. And secondly, the desire. Desire is very, very, you think about desire, it covers huge, everything in life. And if we let the desire under control, that we are going to suffer. The desire can be desire for power, money, material, sex. We all have that. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have any desire at all. Desire is part of our human survival base. We desire for everything. But how we can use that desire to not make us to suffer, that's the key. Therefore, my practice, I'm talking about myself, I base on that. Make sure my desire is out of hand, which is, I think some people talk about this. Buddha always said, play the middle, the one string too tight, one string too loose, the sound doesn't produce sound that well. The one just right, that's the one who has produced the sound beautifully. So I try to live my life in balance that way. Another thing is that, let me tell you one more thing about, I use the Buddha's teaching as my base is, when I was in my early 20s in Thailand, I had girlfriend, I had sex with girls, and all of a sudden I have sex with men. I said, wow, what is this? The whole predicament come up in my mind. I'm weird. What happened when my family can find out? What happened when my friends can find out? I begin to detach from a group of friends that I hang out with. We nightclub, we pick up a girl. Now those days in Thailand we have no underage. I'm 17, I'm 16, I'm in a nightclub, cruising around picking girls, And it was confusing for almost 2 years. Finally, I based on Buddhism teaching. Did I kill anybody? Did I force anybody? Did I lie to anybody? The answer is no. The person having sex with me, got to bed with me, simply we mutual agree on. We're mutual pleasure. What do I harm anyone? I said, that's it. Forget it. Here I am. I literally go to the temple. I light the 3 incense, go down my knee in front of Buddha, say, Buddha, here I am. Give me the best man you can ever find. I never feel guilty, so forever. Period. That's how I use my Buddhism teaching to be a base of my life, regardless of what I do. Now, here we talk about freedom. I can do anything I want. Of course you can do anything you want. But when we do anything we want, and that become step on someone, cheat on someone, harm someone, that is not freedom. That I be aware of that. I try my life not to be, just because I want it, then I won't consider what I want can step on someone else. That's why I live my life in that way. Not much time left. Karma. Okay. Now I worship, or you say practice Buddhism. It's not because so I go to heaven when I die. Forget about that. My practice, I live my life with Buddhism is for now. For now, I feel good. My conscience feels good. I do nice things to people, to society, to humankind, and care for all species and environment. My conscience feels good. Okay, that's but more concern. I don't know. Recently, last year sometime, Barbara Walter interviews all the religious, including Christian and Catholic and Muslim, and he ended up as an answer Jewish and Dalai Lama. everyone else they say heaven. Oh, the top is where's heaven, and everyone else say, oh, heaven. There's a heaven. You go to either go to Jesus or God, wherever you go to heaven. And the question comes from Dalai Lama. Dharma taught his hand on the air. He said, "Who knows?" He said, "Who knows?" That's right on. So that doesn't mean I don't disbelieve that heaven or hell or karma. I don't mean I disbelieve, but I don't believe. I don't care. That's not my priority. My priority is now. That's what I'm concerned. But if they affect me in the next life, it would be great. So who knows again? You know. But what also I use the karma as a scapegoat, when I run the corner, when you're facing difficult situation, where anything happened to, I couldn't solve it. I had no power to do anything better. Back to a corner. I said, that's it. My bad karma catching up with me. I had to accept that. Then from that, we'll be able to accept that, and slowly I will solve the problem. Look into the problem. What can I do? Solve it. What can I deal with this the best way? And that's why when I use karma, that sense, to comfort, to be able to let me accept whatever happened to me. But when something happened nice to me, oh, thank you. Well, no, thank who? But that means I keep confident to what I think is under those guidelines of Buddhism. Not kill, not lie, harm, so forth. And that's why I use my karma as a backup. How it affect, who knows? Again, I don't know, next life, you know. So that's about karma. I think my time almost half hour, right?
Which you need to share with Steve.
I'd like to, I have a lot of things to talk about, and it takes more than time, but if you think you would ask me any question, I'll a little better way to put it. Perhaps the question that, how would I handle it? And I'll tell you the way I handle it. Okay? They leave it like that. So, any question? If not, then I'll go for something else. Any question? Yes.
I think you have a question.
I do. Maybe we should hold questions for both of you till later. I'm not quite sure where to say
It's better later?
Yeah, we'll go later.
Okay, fine.
Stay right there.
Okay. I think that I would a conclusion right here for now. Thank you.
Hearing what was just said strikes me because my own spiritual journey reflects the fragmentation of religion in America. That's what I got. When I was in 7th grade, I went to Mass. That might not sound like a big deal, but it was a long time ago and I was Protestant. And within an hour, the phones were ringing all over the neighborhood. Steve Carson went to Mass. When I was in 10th grade, I entered the Radio Moscow 50th Anniversary of the Revolution contest. And I would keep interrupting my social studies teacher when he went on about the Vietnam War. This was 1967. And I would just say, but Radio Moscow says. When I was in 11th grade, I organized a walkout from my school to protest the Vietnam War, and we slept overnight in our church in honor of the moratorium on the war in Vietnam. My parents were very patient, I realized. And I thought of those things because I think my American experience, as opposed to growing up in other countries, we do have some freedom. I mean, the freedom to embarrass our parents, first of all, but there's a certain amount of freedom, even though the dominant religious culture is a little screwed up. On the edges, we have a lot of freedom and room to navigate, and that's kind of been my story. I was a school teacher in upstate New York till I was 25. And then when I was 25, I moved to New York City. I did that to be gay. But I needed something to do, so I went to Union Seminary, which I had heard of. I grew up in a liberal Protestant church, and I heard of Union as a liberal seminary. And it was where Bonhoeffer went, and Niebuhr went, and liberation theology was happening, and there was a gay caucus, and a black caucus, and a black women's caucus, and a lesbian caucus, and it was very heady times. And after I got my degree, I decided to use it and moved to Boston to become pastor of the MCC church there for 5 years. Kind of a low-gauge kind of ministry. I didn't dress up or things like that. It was more a functional kind of leadership role for me. And after 5 years of that, I moved to San Francisco and gave up that kind of ministry. Hence my theme of seasons of life. You'll hear the phrase, a priest forever. Episcopalians like it. I don't believe that. For me, that wasn't true. I think we can do things for a season and then let it go. And I'm really glad I let certain things go to make room for new things. The dramatic turning points of life, I think, are easier when we're younger. You know, I moved to Boston, I moved to New York, I moved to San Francisco. Those are very dramatic flourishes. I think as we get older, it's a little more humbling. It's 2007. I am now 54. The treadmill reminds me of that whenever I have to punch in my age. It's a new thing. You have to punch in your age, hold it down until it gets into the 50s. And God forbid it hits 55. Go back.
That's worse.
I'm surprised it doesn't just make you type in single, too. But what I'm realizing is those dramatic changes aren't necessarily going to happen. They happen. I mean, San Francisco is where I got sober. It's where I came to this group and picked up some Buddhism. But I'm much more humbled by the type of changes that we make when we're older. I wonder how many rabbits I have left in my hat, frankly. When I'm 25, cool, let's go to New York. I'm 33, cool, let's go to Boston. Let's go to San Francisco. But now I kind of look in the hat and how many rabbits are left, I don't know. For me, there's 3 questions of life, and they are location, vocation, relation. That's pretty good, huh? Location, vocation, relation. My friends and I, that's what we talk about all the time. And that's my little inventory. I mean, location seems to work. I like San Francisco. It works. As long as I have my rent-controlled apartment, it works. Vocation, I've done different things, and now I'm a school teacher, 6th grade. Love it. Works for me. Relation, well, we don't get all 3 very often. Remember Michael Tolliver? It's the same thing. You get the hot job, the hot apartment, or the hot lover, but not all 3 at once. So location, vocation, relation. And I guess I would add religion to that. Maybe under relation. What's religion, and where are we now in that? And my take on religion is I'm actually religious and not spiritual. I mean, that's contrary to the San Francisco mantra, but I'm religious, not spiritual. And what I mean by that is the word religion I actually took Latin. The word religion goes back to re, which means again, ligio, which means to connect, like ligament, connect. So the word religion can either mean to reconnect or to bind. Those are the two meanings of the ligo part. It can connect or it can bind. And I think that's a really good analysis of religion at its best and at its worst. At its worst, it binds us and restricts us. At its best, it connects us. It connects us, first of all, to other people. It connects us to history. It connects us to the world. When I grew up in a small town in upstate New York, I was in the MYF, Methodist Youth Fellowship, and we went to New York to visit the United Nations. We went to Kentucky to work in a mission, and the church was always my window on the world. Got me out of my small town. I'm no longer a Christian in the same way, and I miss some of that. I think there's some treasures in Christianity that I want to remember. One of which is just that, it's community. My experience of Christianity was it was community. Buddhism can feel a little lonely sometimes. The other thing about Christianity is the emphasis on justice, the claim to love the world and engage the world. Those are powerful statements about Christianity. For the last month, I actually went back to MCC to give it a try. It was Christmas. I got a little sentimental and went back, and I'm done with it. But I gave it a shot, and I went to some churches on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and what struck me was how all religions seem to start with the fundamental fact of the brokenness of the world. They would define it different ways, brokenness or dukkha or sin or injustice, or Marx would say alienation. I'm dating myself, Karl Marx. In Chinese religion, it might be disharmony. But I kind of got some comfort in the fact that all religions seem to start with this fundamental fact of brokenness. And from there, it's how do we respond to it. Speaking of hats, if you've read the Harry Potter books, I'm a 6th grade teacher, I can't avoid them. One of the great things in Harry Potter is when you arrive at Hogwarts Academy, there's this big ceremony where Maggie Smith puts on your head the sorting hat. Have you seen the movies or read the books? When you arrive at Hogwarts Academy, they have to decide which house you're going to be part of. And part of the ceremony is Maggie Smith puts a big old hat on your head, and the hat comes to life, and it begins to look inside you and goes, and announces where you belong. Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Slytherin. What the 50s feel like for me, being in my 50s, is sorting hat time. It feels just like that. It feels like I want to put on this hat and have it tell me where I belong, because I don't know. Buddhist, Christian, socialist, whatever. That whole sorting hat thing. Christianity will always be my native tongue. I realize that. It's what I think first. And frankly, I miss some of that. I miss, like I said, the justice part and the love the world part and engage the world, the community part. The Buddhist part, which started a couple years ago, makes sense to me because it helps me with my suffering. And I'll limit it to that. It helps me with my suffering, which is largely psychological, largely self-imposed. When I crash on the rocks of romance, that's my samsara. We've been here before. Buddhism is really helpful for that. I think the type of suffering that I would call suffering, and it's real, is helped by what I learn here. At the same time, I wrestle with Buddhism's to me, overemphasis on that kind of suffering. If you know the story of Prince Siddhartha, the first 4 men he saw, old, sick, dead, holy. And that determined his definition of suffering, old age, sickness, and death. I can't help but wonder how it would have turned out if the people he saw that day on the road were instead victims of war or starvation or poverty. I think Buddhism would have a different spin. I am not prepared to tell a bombed out person that their suffering is psychological. I'm not. And I'm not saying Buddhism says that, but it's what I wrestle with. It seems like there's an issue there about justice that could be engaged. Like I said, Buddhism can seem kind of lonely at times. I call it iPod Buddhism. You know, the world is in agony and I'm meditating. There's a story about a man who heard a radio for the first time and they were playing Beethoven. And he loved Beethoven. He just was in love with Beethoven and wanted to find Beethoven. So he went to the radio and he took it apart to find Beethoven. Sometimes I think Buddhism feels like that to me. It's the chemistry of how we think. And that's useful. It's very useful. All those lists about how we think, it's very useful. But it's chemistry. I turn to Hinduism for biology. Hinduism to me is all about life. If you read the Upanishads and it says there's a sunset, there's a mountain, there's a storm, you are that. That's the famous thing in the Upanishads. You are that. So part of me is attracted to that, those Hindu gods and the energy of Hinduism. And as Teng How said, the Buddha was a Hindu. I think it's really important to reclaim. The Buddha probably practiced yoga. The Buddha knew about the body. His community knew about the body. And I think in the West we've kind of taken this mental understanding of Buddhism. You know, and I think we need to really go back and claim something that was assumed in the Buddha's time about the body that we kind of missed. Because in the West we like to split things up and we just took the half we wanted. In my 50s I've discovered Qigong. It's much better on the knees than a treadmill. And Qigong is another kind of embodied meditation for me. It's very easy on an older body and there's all sorts of DVDs to get, or Guan Yin Center has Qigong classes. So I guess my theme is this sorting hat idea. And I think we have two different cultures here, two different ways that can be. It seems that in other parts of the world it is more fluid. That you don't have to make a choice. It's more fluid. And I think the opportunity we have here in this group is we get to choose a little bit about how Buddhism's going to look in the future. And I think there's something the West can bring to the East as well as the East bringing to the West. And I think we're part of that, actually. I've always been restless and reluctant about any group I join. Dissent is a form of loyalty. That's important for me to remember. Dissent is a form of loyalty. If I'm arguing, it means I'm still here. My friends don't always appreciate that, but it's true. They actually do appreciate it. I wrestle with what the point of religion is. Some people say the point is happiness. I don't think the point of religion is happiness. I think the point is justice. Or why choose? Maybe it's both. Maybe happy people can create a just world. But I think both of them go together. C.S. Lewis is a Christian writer. He has this image that when we're in our 20s, we kind of walk down this hallway and look at all the different rooms of religion. Like, oh, there's the Episcopalian room, it's very pretty. There's the Buddhist room. It's very quiet. And he says that that's a useful thing at a certain season of our life, to just explore those different rooms. But then he goes further and says, but at some point, pick a room and live in it. Don't spend your whole life in the hallway. I've kind of struck a middle ground with that. I think I've chosen different rooms for different times in my life. But I think he's right. I think there's an American tendency to go, I'm not going to commit too much. I'm just going to pick and choose. I'm not really going to commit. And I think we suffer for that. I think there's a certain need to get into something in depth. And we're not joiners. I'm not the only one. I think we're not joiners. We're a little suspicious of that. So sorting hat time. What would it mean to put on that sorting hat and kind of say, what would my religion look like? And it is sort of flowing together. It does seem more fragmented growing up in America. And I realize that's not my fault. That's what I got from this morning. It's not my fault. It comes to us fragmented. And it's our job to kind of, not our job, it's our opportunity. It's our appreciation to begin to weave it together our own way. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, we have some time now for questions to either one of the speakers. I'd like to ask them this question.
You practice Qigong, and Teng How teaches Qigong, and I'd be interested in how you guys experience, how you describe that experience, and if you consider it to have a spiritual component. Is electricity spiritual?
I don't know. To me, I've been practicing Tai-Qi and Qigong for 20 years now, religiously. But I don't really think practicing Qigong or Tai-Qi I don't consider it a spiritual side of me. It's simply because that brings my attitude to be able to more center with my spiritual side. And besides that, for my mental, physical health. And as my dear Mark said that, Qigong or Tai-Qi is part of my Buddhism practice simply because I give a class for the past over 10 years for free of charge. But my reason, I think you may say that because my religious Buddhism background, I want to give back, to have to help. Something maybe I was gifted, but now I want to pass on a benefit that I received by practice this form to my human friends. That's my practice too.
For me, if I would define the issue as brokenness and fragmentation, Qigong for me is about unity. And when I'm doing the movements, I am meditating, and I feel unified, body, spirit, whatever all that is. It's one of the few times I actually do feel that. And it's an energy I want to know more about. I think it's related to erotic energy and sexual energy and all sorts of good things that often seem very split for me growing up in the 50s and growing up here. For me, it's about unification and unity and feeling really good about that while I meditate.
Yeah. I have a question for you, Steve. On your Christian background, which you got out of Christianity. I grew up in a Christian household too, and it was not like a fundamentalist Christian. It was like a New Jersey suburban Christian environment. But I'm wondering how you maybe you don't see the issues like I do, but how you reconcile the message that you got from Christianity versus how so much Christianity manifests itself right now as far as hatefulness and intolerance and dogma. I'll just leave it at that.
Frankly, I'm really impatient with it, and I don't know why anybody goes to those churches. They just shouldn't go. I have friends who are Methodist ministers, and the Methodist Church has been very recalcitrant on gay stuff. They're just, every 4 years they vote that gays are bad.
And it even goes beyond the gay stuff, it's like a lot of other religions too.
I guess for me it doesn't work anymore. I have friends who are they're the loyal opposition, and they've made a stake to kind of try to change it from within. The Episcopalians give me hope recently because the conservatives are leaving, because they've seen the writing on the wall that the Episcopal Church is going to stay liberal. That's actually pretty good. I'm surprised that they had it in them. The Episcopal Church is being pretty liberal. But yeah, it is 2007, Dublin. I mean, and they're acting like it's 1950, and I don't get that either. The failure of nerve, the failure of courage is a little dispiriting.
I had just some thoughts about this, mind, body, and spiritual body thing that you were talking about, Steve. And there was a teacher here, I forget her name, and she had us go through this meditation where there was a bright Buddha on our top of our heads. Do you remember that? And she had it bring us down into our...
Tonglen.
Was it Tonglen? And I guess that really works for me. And there's a friend of mine who's, I think he's Catholic, and he suffers from anxiety, and he says, in the morning when he wakes up, he has anxiety. He has this image of, Christ wrapping his arms around him. And when I first heard that, I really freaked. I said, this guy's really got something pathological going on. But I do the Tonglen. Is that what it is, Tonglen? Is that how you say it? Meditation now. And I just, what I feel is that it fills my body, and that I am a Buddha, because that's what we're taught, that we are all Buddhas. And now, on that kind of a meditation, physical level, I can experience that. And when I was raised Catholic, we used to take the Eucharist because it was supposed to be Christ. We became Christ. Christ comes within us, and we each become, I guess they said Christ-like, but we actually had theoretically Christ's body, coursing through our veins through the Eucharistic host. So I don't think it's a far out. I mean, it is far out, but I don't think it is unhelpful for me in really finding my body very fused to my spirit in a very real way. So, I liked you reminding us of that, Steve, because I think when I first came in here, Buddhism was kind of heady, and I did like it because, almost for the same reasons you said, that psychologically it brought me down several stories, but now, and also I had the advantage of being in a socially engaged Buddhist group, so I didn't have the same experience that Buddhist was detached. So anyway, that's just my response. And of course, I went to Thailand for 3 weeks. It was kind of awesome to be in a Buddhist country last year. And I appreciate what Teng How Bae says about the experience of living there. I mean, I suppose a Thai Christian would love to come to the United States and live in a Christian country to experience it. And it's just the other thing for me. So,
Teng How, of course, the kindness, metta, the loving kindness of Buddhist countries is just wonderful. So I'm particularly horrified when those same countries collapse into absolute horror. My only response is, well, that's duality. You can't have real kindness without absolute horror as part of that. Do you have any comments on the terrible things that happened in Buddhist cultures in Asia?
I can see what you say, but I'm struggle with situations like that too. Actually, I mentioned my partner said, I wish I could find a guru help me to give me an answer that why human aggression it happens everywhere in the world. How can I take it? Not to make myself suffer. No, but the thing is, I think we can't really figure out what's going on. We only can start from ourselves, center, practice loving kindness, compassion, by to ourselves first. Then, from that attitude, affect you to you. You practice same way, you affect him to him, I practice affect him. From that, start with. There's a hope. But don't tell me that. I'm not sure that we really can turn things around. It's human race that becomes.
Looks like it's getting worse.
No. I say over 10 years ago, a friend of mine visiting from Thailand too, but he lived in New York City. He came here. He said, if there's a next life, I'm not coming back this earth. How can you say that? I have so many friends I like and so many good-looking men this earth has. How can you say that? You know what? A few years later, I agree with him totally. I don't want to come back here either. And that brings me to something else. I believe, if you talk about Buddhism teaching true, that we come here to learn. I believe the three big religions here, Muslim, Jewish, and Christian, they put here how to solve, how to live harmoniously together. I think the test they put here for us to how to deal with that. Anyway, I believe that we learn every life going on. Learn from mistakes, learn from people, and at the same time, after we learn, we are able to move our consciousness higher up. Remember, things look like a big deal to us when we're young. Now I look at it, that's so stupid. How could I get submerge myself under that kind of situation? Because we learn from it. So to me, personally, I hope I can learn from it and move my consciousness higher level, a little by little. Until someday, maybe, I don't know how many lifetimes I come back. By the time I figure out everything in this earth is human race, doesn't mean anything for me anymore. That means why I come back here? I move on. And the destiny, this is my fantasy, okay? The destiny is I become just a light or a star floating. No feeling, just floating. Maybe take me a zillion, million years to reach that. But this is my aim. However, how far it go, I don't know. But make me feel good. Make me have an aim. Maintain that practice. That's how I handle it.
One more question.
Thank you both very much. Steve, I had a question for you. Why and when, I guess, is it that you feel like you need to choose between the various things? For example, one of the things that I really admire about Buddhism, it seems to have room for many other thoughts. And I'm wondering, can you meditate, for example, and also have a socially active consciousness and the idea of justice? And I guess, what is it for you? Is it where you go on Sundays?
That's a really good point. That's part of it. NCC meets Sunday morning, same time as GBF. Mm-hmm. So when I literally had to choose which is it going to be. 7 days in the week, and they choose at the same time. But I think the other thing is just recognize, another thing about getting older is we have limited energy and resources. And in terms of like devoting yourself to a community and the time that takes, really the time it takes to get to build community, that's not a promiscuous enterprise in terms of quick and easy. So that's a good point. I guess I do try to weave it together. And it helps to know that there are cultures where it's less fraught, you know. I have kids from Asia, and very often their grandma does this and grandpa does this, and I have Guanyin here, and I'm reflecting, like I said, the divisions out there, but there is that you have to choose a room kind of feeling, or else you're just going to be out in the hall. So, I don't know.
All right. Thank you, Teng How Bae and Steve Carson.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.